Around the Octagon is back for a second episode of the week. Here we're going to recap the main card and featured prelim for UFC Abu Dhabi. Pretty fun card. It seems like they always like to stack these up. Again, we got the full crew in the house. Luke, Ryan, San. How are we doing, fellas?
Good.
Good. I'm happy to hear that, Ryan. I'm happy to hear that. But we'll just get right into this. We'll start with Bryce Mitchell versus Saeed Magomedov. And as of Monday night, at the time of recording, this is the featured prelim. Maybe it gets moved to the main card, but we do not know as of now. But kind of diving into it, Bryce Mitchell is making his bantamweight debut, going down after that kind of beat down against Gene Silva. And he's facing Saeed Nurmagomedov. And this is a very interesting fight. They're pretty damn similar. Bryce Mitchell obviously will have the step up in BJJ. Saeed Nurmagomedov will be the better grappler. And when I look at this fight, I don't really think Bryce Mitchell is a much better striker than Saeed. I kind of see that being a wash there. And I see Saeed Nurmagomedov being able to take down Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell's takedown defense isn't really there. Never really has been there. I could see Saeed Nurmagomedov controlling Bryce Mitchell a little bit. But Bryce Mitchell definitely has that grappling upside, the submission upside. You've seen him pull off some pretty crazy submissions. But I guess where my mind goes, and the reason why I am picking Saeed Nurmagomedov to start this off, is Bryce Mitchell has notoriously faded throughout fights. We saw it against Gene Silva, went around, absolutely gassed out. Ilia Topuria went around, absolutely gassed out. I know against Ilia, he had the flu, but guess what? He just did the same thing against Gene Silva. I kind of trust Saeed Nurmagomedov's gas tank a little bit more, and for that reason, I am going with Saeed. And San, I'm going to kick this one over to you to give your inputs.
Yeah, kind of a tough fight to call, but I'm going with Bryce Mitchell here. He's been on a up and down kind of streak recently where he wins a fight, loses a fight, wins a fight, loses a fight. It's kind of been that way since the Ilia Topuria fight. But let's not forget who Bryce Mitchell is, man. You know, right before that Ilia fight, he beat Edson Barboza. He beat Andre Fili. He beat some pretty legit UFC guys, and he's been in the UFC for a pretty good amount of time now. I mean, he joined right before, COVID and all that in 2018. So, he's had a lot of UFC fights. He's got really good experience, and he's fought, pretty fucking good guys. I mean, we're talking about Ilia Topuria is a loss, Josh Emmett's a loss, and Gene Silva's a loss. Beating Dan Ige, and then a very, not exciting Kron Gracie. But this is a fight I can definitely see him winning. It's not like some huge prospect. It's not some guy that's, just knocking everybody out. Saeed Nurmagomedov is in my eyes, at least, and at this point in his career, I think a very average UFC fighter. He's not going to, lose any obvious ones, but he's also not going to, beat anybody spectacular, which is kind of what I see from Bryce Mitchell. And in this case, I think Bryce Mitchell knows he needs to get a win, and he needs to get a good win to kind of get back into the UFC's good graces. Obviously, he's had, some PR nightmares, and he's also, not been, the old Bryce Mitchell that we're used to seeing win. Before that Ilia Topuria fight. But I do think it's time for him to bounce back. I think it's a good opportunity for him. He's obviously got really good grappling. And we'll see what this weight change does to him. Maybe it helps him out a lot more. Maybe he's a little bit stronger in this weight division. And he's able to, put on some more pressure in the grappling, even against a wrestler here. So we'll see. I'm going Bryce Mitchell. I'm kind of hoping for the best. I always liked him. He's kind of like a Kanye to me. You can never make me hate him. I don't really care what he says. Like, he's kind of just a funny guy, and I support him.
So, dude, of all the people you can compare this dude to, I guess it makes sense.
It does make sense. It's kind of like a very similar situation. Obviously, he was never, as good of a fighter as Kanye is to making music, but is a guy that, you just kind of remember, how good he is. And he is a guy that I think he's always been pretty good. Obviously not the cream of the crop, but he's a really good UFC fighter. So I'm backing my guy here. Let me take that back. Not my guy, but I'm backing Bryce Mitchell here. He's who has my support this weekend. And we'll see. We'll see who gets canceled first after this one. Me or Bryce Mitchell.
No, son, I do agree. I'm going Bryce Mitchell here. I think what sells it for me, minus, dropping down in weight, he should carry a pretty decent size advantage. He was competitive at featherweight. It's when you look at Saeed Nurmagomedov's losses, I think the name kind of fools a lot of people. Saeed Nurmagomedov is a very slick striker, but lacks a little bit in the wrestling and the grappling department besides, like, those standing ninja chokes. Losses to Raoni Barcelos, who also beat Peyton Talbot, and Barcelos wrestle fucked him. His last loss to Vinicius Oliveira. Vinicius Oliveira landed 3 takedowns and got a good amount of control time there. So he just kind of struggles to get back up to the feet once he's taken down. And you already know the Bryce Mitchell game plan is going to be takedown and control time. And I think if the weight cut goes well, assuming that the weight cut goes well for Bryce Mitchell, he's going to carry that size advantage, and he'll be bigger going into this fight. And he holds the wrestling advantage there, in the grappling, the control time. I think we'll take this one for Bryce Mitchell. So I like a Bryce Mitchell by decision here. I like I said, I also think the name fools a lot of people. When you look at the name, you see Nurmagomedov, much more of a striker than he is a grappler. And I'm hoping that as the week goes by, these odds continue to shift towards Said Nurmagomedov's favor. I think Bryce Mitchell will be a pretty good parlay piece in terms of as an underdog pick. If that line moves far enough, you could get some juice there out of Bryce Mitchell. So give me Bryce.
Yeah, I'm gonna make that 3 in a row. I'm going Bryce Mitchell as well here. You guys really hit on everything. For me, it's just the level of competition he's fought over the last 5 years. He's been in there with killers. The champ, Ilia Topuria, and then like you guys mentioned, even last fight losing to Gene Silva. Gene Silva's on the up and up. Coming out of the Fighting Nerds camp. Those are good losses that have aged extremely well to this point in time. And I agree with everything you said, Ryan. I think he's going to come in bigger and stronger, and not coming off a knockout. I know he did get beat up in that Gene Silva fight, but did get submitted. So I don't think he needs that much layoff in terms of recoverability. I think the jiu-jitsu is going to be on full display. I think he's going to sub him. I think we're going to see a Bryce Mitchell sub here. I think that's very much in play, and I agree. I hope the line continues to get wider, and we get some plus odds for Bryce Mitchell here.
Before we move on, one more thing I want to touch on, I guess, too, is, like we have said, this is his first fight at bantamweight. I'm very curious on how that weight cut goes. It very well might not go very well. We shall see. And for a guy who has had problems with his gas tank, now you're cutting 10 more pounds. I don't think that's going to help out your gas tank very much at all. And then second point being, and I meant to say this earlier, let's remember this fight is taking place in Abu Dhabi. If it is a close fight, I think it'll very, very likely go to Said Nurmagomedov. So just keep in mind the judges' scorecards have been notoriously fucking crazy here in Abu Dhabi. So that's kind of another reason why I tend to lead Said. But moving on, we have a light heavyweight bout between Nikita Krylov and Bogdan Guskov. Krylov is coming off that KO loss to Dominic Reyes, that Volk pay-per-view a few months back. Bogdan Guskov, on the other hand, is coming off a submission win over Bailey Elicana. And Bogdan Guskov has not fought anyone remotely good yet in his UFC career. Wins over Zach Paglia, who had lost to Muhammad Usman in the Ultimate Fighter Championship, then a win over Ryan Spann and a win over Billy Elicana. So this is a step up in competition, fighting Nikita Krylov, who has had a career of being in there with some of the best himself. So interesting matchup here. With that being said, Luke, I'm going to toss this one over to you.
Yeah, I'm going Guskov here. I think this is very clearly a little bit too fast off that knockoff for Krylov, man. I think Guskov has the similar ability. I'm not putting him in the same category as Dom Reyes in any sense, but I do think he has that knockout power that Krylov has seen to have struggles with. I think Krylov definitely has the grappling advantage here. But even though Guskov is more of a striker, he does tend to, when he gets taken down, fights really hard to get back up and doesn't really spend a lot of time on the ground. He's always fighting for a better position. So I think he's going to negate his grappling here. And I just find him finding a chin. 3 months off of that knockout from Dom Reyes just seems a little fast for Krylov, especially at 33 years old. So I'm going the underdog Guskov here.
Yeah, Luke, I agree with you there. I'm going Guskov as well. It was hard to watch when he fought Dom Reyes. He got put out cold, and that was after coming off a two-year layoff essentially. And then to come back in against a heavy hitter like Guskov, who's on a tear, 3-fight win streak. Like you said, Zach, the competition might not be that high, but he's fighting the way you want to see a prospect fight against lower level competition, where he's just putting their lights out, getting finishes, nothing's going to decision. And I think the Ryan Spann win will start aging better as Ryan Spann moves up in the heavyweight division, after moving up. He just got a first round submission win over Lucas Brzeski. Sorry, wrong guy. Just got that submission win over Lucas Brzeski. Obviously Lucas Brzeski's cream of the crop of the heavyweight division, but good bounce back win for him. He's shown improvement. Ryan Span's working on his game. He did have some impressive, like Ryan Span has an impressive knockout over Dominic Reyes when he was fighting at lightweight. But I mean, other than that, I worry about the chin at 33 years old, finally getting cracked in his last fight and then just jumping up so soon, only 3 months later, finally coming back after a 2-year layoff to fight a heavy hitter in Bogdan Guskov, who has shown that he can finish you from anywhere, whether it's on the ground or standing up on the feet. So can be Bogdan Guskov here.
Yeah, I initially when I first saw this fight, I wanted to go Krylov because obviously he's got a lot of good names on his resume, and that's one thing that we've touched on, and one thing that we even saw last weekend. Experience does go a long way. But I think that we also saw something this weekend with Kevin Holland. You fight too early. It's going to catch up to you at some point, and I don't think that's the weight class that you can kind of just jump back in it. It doesn't really matter who you're fighting. Once you start getting up to that weight. It is, every punch you take is going to hurt. And especially after you get knocked out by a guy like Dom Reyes, who's obviously highly skilled and definitely packs a punch. It's tough to go and turn around 3 months later, kind of do some training when it did go so wrong for you against Dom Reyes last time. So I'm also going to ride with Bogdan Guskov here. I'm kind of hoping for a finish here. I think it's a good opportunity for him. And I think, he's obviously on the come up after, losing his debut fight by submission, which, isn't the worst way to go out when you start getting into those heavier divisions. It'd be another thing if he straight up lost in the feet. But he's been doing pretty well since then. So let's hope that he takes another one this weekend.
Yeah, I think the Nikita Krylov submission threat is there. I think he could pull off some sort of submission. But if you think about it, his medical suspension had to have just ended. That probably was like a 90-day medical suspension, and it's been a little over 3 months. I don't know how good of an idea it is to hop back in there this quickly. I just can't really put my eggs in that basket, and therefore I'm going to go with Bogdan Guskov. But if I were to get a little greedy here, maybe I'd sprinkle a little something on Nikita Krylov via sub. That's not a terrible play in my eyes, but moving on to a flyweight bout, we have a fight between the number 9th ranked Asu Almabayev taking on the 13th ranked Ramazan Timurov. Timurov has taken this fight on short notice.
I don't think
Another
that's
thing
the
to
fight.
keep in mind here. What's up?
Is it Jose Ochoa?
Oh no, you're right. It is Ochoa. They switched it up. They have Timurov on the fucking on the UFC website right now.
They do. Wow.
Dog shit organization.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just looking at. I was like,
But it was Jose Ochoa. So now I'm a little confused. What's going on here? We need Jamie. Hey Jamie, pull it up for me. What's going on here?
I want to say it's not Ochoa.
I think Ochoa was taking the fight on short notice. So was it Timurov who pulled out and then Ochoa stepped in? Would make sense.
I believe that is the case. Let me just confirm.
Yeah. Timurov's been. Yeah, I'm looking over here.
Timurov pulled out and Ochoa stepped
up
in.
Next for this weekend. So Jose Ochoa's got.
Yes. Okay. So Ochoa is stepping in on short notice to take on Asu Almabayev, and that's an interesting one. Ochoa is a nice up and coming prospect. I think he just beat Cody Durden, I believe.
Yep.
But you flip that coin over on the other side. Asu Almabayev, I know he's coming off that bad loss to Manel Kape, but before that he was a prospect on the rise, and in my opinion, on short notice, this is a little bit too much to bite here for Jose Ochoa, and for that reason I'm going to go with Asu Almabayev. But I digress. Ryan, the floor is yours, my friend.
I don't know, man. It's a tough one because I had when I was doing my research, it wasn't for Jose Ochoa. Now I learned that he stepped in on short notice. I kind of like the idea of another Joshua Van in the flyweight division. So, I mean, obviously Jose Ochoa was a prospect, sick win over Cody Durden, but he does it at UD loss to Loner Kavanaugh. I mean, Loner Kavanaugh is another rising up and coming prospect in this division. I think experience will come down to it because, I mean, realistically, Manel Kape should probably be fighting for a belt if he didn't have so many canceled fights. So that loss doesn't age as bad as one to Loner Kavanaugh. So I think I have to go Asu Almabayev just based on the fact that this is short notice in his hometown. somewhat of Abu Dhabi. If this goes to a decision, you know who they're going for. And give me the guy that's been conditioned for a fight for the better part of 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah, right. I'm right there with you. I'm going Almabayev. I think you kind of hit it all. Short notice. For me, it's really Almabayev hasn't lost other than the Manuel Cape loss since 2017. He's been on a roll. I think he really has I think obviously Jose Ochoa is a great striker. He's got pretty precise striking. But I think Almabayev can just really get down wrestling, chain wrestle this way to a decision victory. And yeah, I actually, when I was doing the research today, I didn't know this was a short notice step in. So that just makes me feel better about picking the slight underdog on Tapology right now. I'm going Almabayev. I don't see him getting him out of there. It's going to be a decision.
Yeah, I think a trend that we're seeing is, these Kazakhstan fighters are really making a name for themselves. It's almost becoming like a Dagestan of the world when it comes to fighting. Just a lot of solid prospects that way, and a lot of go-getters and guys that like to throw hands. So respect and shout out to Kazakhstan over there. Definitely backing the boy Almabayev here. I think it just makes more sense. I was having a really tough time actually picking between him and Temirov, although I was leaning Almabayev. But now this kind of makes my decision a lot easier. Stepping out on short notice, especially on those flyweight divisions where it's always those guys are always fighting like an anime fight. Those guys are throwing like 1,000 punches a minute. It's kind of something tough to just go in on. Heavyweight, light heavyweight, almost. I can see you stepping in on short notice and having a little bit easier time because that conditioning doesn't play in too much of a factor. But I think conditioning is probably, one of the biggest factors. I mean, unless you can, you have serious knockout power at the flyweight division, I think it's really going to come down to that. And I think it's just a very tough test for Jose Ochoa to come in and take that win. So I'm going on Almabayev. I think that's a clean sweep, unless I don't know if you've given your pick yet, Zach, but yeah, I'm going on Almabayev.
Yeah, I'm on Asu Almabayev as well. That is a clean sweep. And moving on, we have Shara Bullet Magomedov looking to rebound off that Michael Venom Page loss, taking on Marc-André Barriault, who picked up a very nice win in his last outing after dropping a few in a row via knockout. And let me say this right now, this is a perfect matchup for Shara Bullet Magomedov. This is the complete opposite of a striker as Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page is very patient. He confuses people. He's just so unorthodox, where Marc-André Barriault will move forward. Shara Bullet likes when someone moves forward and he's able to counter. So I think this is literally a knockout sitting on a silver platter here for Shara Bullet Magomedov, and I will be taking him via knockout. And with that being said, again, I digress, and the floor is yours, Luke.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is a perfect rebound fight for Shara Bullet here. Obviously, like you said, I think Michael Venom Page just, presents so many problems for Shara Bullet's style. And Marc-André is not that guy. He's a stand-up brawler. That's how this fight is going to be. And I think that's the perfect fight for Shara Bullet to find his range, find that crazy kicks, the spinning back fist, the double spinning back fist. I think that's all open for display. And obviously we know, kind of the contingency with him. He can't get sanctioned to fight really anywhere but Abu Dhabi because of his eye. So he's playing in front of the home crowd. I remember even the Michael Venom Page fight, everyone that I was watching was a little nervous how that decision was going to go. So I think that just adds to it. I think he's a big favorite. He's minus 500 on Tapology. He gets back in the win column, and the hype regains in Shara Bullet here.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I'm riding the Shara Bullet train. I think I don't think really there's much else to say. I think this is a great opportunity for him to bounce back. I will say I am a little bit underwhelmed with the amount of hype that he's been getting for this fight. With obviously the huge event we had last weekend that everybody was looking forward to. It was kind of hard to even, remember that Shara Bullet's fighting this week. So definitely got overshadowed a little bit by last week, and there definitely hasn't been as much hype around him since that MVP loss. But I think really that was just a level sort of thing. MVP so damn good, and he's gonna not take as many shots as a guy like Shara Bullet likes to put on you. But Marc-André will, and that will be a good opportunity for him to get a flashy knockout, maybe get another a highlight win here. To give him another boost in the rankings. And Marc-André is obviously no slouch. He's been fighting pretty decently recently, so getting a nice win, nice finish over him, would look real good on a resume.
Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much, all three of you summed it up pretty much perfectly. I mean, the dynamic striking out of Shara here will probably win him this fight. I mean, going up against MVP, I mean, you're just talking about a striking battle, and you pose no threat with a takedown. MVP is going to win that 9 times out of 10 versus most people in this division, let alone the entire UFC roster. And yeah, Marc-André Barriault, it's the type of bite down on the mouthpiece, walk forward, wing shots, try to knock you out, and Shara should be able to dip, duck, and dodge. All of those, pick him apart on the feet. Marc-André Barriault's pretty tough. I mean, 1 KO loss to Joe Pyfer, who hits like an absolute freight train. This either goes to a decision, or it's like you both touched on, or all three of you. We're going to see some highlight reel finish. So I'll call it now. Round 2, 3 minutes in, spinning wheel kick, Shara bullet Magomedov for the flashy KO. So
I like it. We got Mystic Ryan on the pod now. It's pretty sweet. But moving on to the co-main event, we have Piotr No Mercy Jan looking to stay busy, taking on number 13th ranked Marcus McGee. I will say one thing, man. I think a lot of people kind of just don't know Marcus McGee, or for whatever reason, like severely underestimate him. I understand there's levels to this, and I'm not saying Marcus McGee is going to win this fight, but he's no slouch, man. And Marcus McGee is pretty fun to watch. So I actually don't necessarily completely hate this fight. I think it'll be pretty fun to watch. But with that being said, San, I'm going to toss this one over to you. Let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a little bit too early for Marcus McGee. I don't think this was, I kind of surprised him when the matchmaking came out for this one. I think, Piotr Jan's been on a really good few fight streak now. He's been having some really good performances against, Figueiredo. And then you have his other fight against Song Yadong, where he also had a really good performance. His cardio is still perfect as usual. And Marcus McGee, obviously, he's been performing. He's had some really good fights. I can see, kind of why they made the jump. But I think Piotr Jan's on a completely different level. I mean, I think when we talk about, the top of that division, Piotr Jan's one of the guys that I mentioned that I could see making a comeback and, fighting for that title again. And I think he has a really good chance against a guy like Merab. Now, Marcus McGee, I think this is kind of, I'm almost surprised that Piotr Jan took this fight. Maybe there's not anybody else for him to fight right now, which is why kind of he went that route. But yeah, I'm pretty heavy on Piotr Jan this time. I know Marcus McGee is a dog. He's an animal. He's obviously a really, really good fighter. But I'm really high on Piotr Jan recently. His past few performances really surprised me and kind of showed us that vintage Piotr Jan before he, gave Aljo a kiss with his knee. But, I think it was kind of a mental thing, and he kind of, got himself in a rut after, what transpired back in the day. But I fully think he's back. I think it's a good few weeks for comebacks, and I think Piotr Jan's going to have a really nice statement win this weekend, probably in decision per usual. But if McGee leaves himself open, don't be surprised if Piotr Jan gets that finish.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of matchmaking, I was a little confused going into this one. When I first got announced, considering Marcus McGee's ranked 13 and Piotr Jan's number 2 in the division, it seems like such a big jump. But like you guys touched on, Marcus McGee's making a name for himself. He's very impressive in his 4 fights within the UFC. And also, what I failed to realize is that he's 35 years old. So this is more of a now or never type thing. So I am happy he got this matchup. But at the same time, it just seems like too much too soon. 4th fight in, Jonathan Martinez, you take to a decision. And then next thing you know, you're fighting number 2 ranked Piotr Jan in the bantamweight division. And Piotr Jan still has it. We saw that in his last 2 wins between Song Yadong and Davison Figueiredo.
Yeah.
He's been putting Piotr Jan showing he could still put on a masterclass. He had a rough go of it between, losing the belt to Aljamain Sterling the second time and then fighting Merab Dvalishvili, which is a win that's aged phenomenal. And that controversial split decision loss to Sean O'Malley. In a perfect world, as a UFC fan, you would have loved to have seen Sean O'Malley and Piotr Jan running this one back this weekend, but you get Marcus McGee, and I think on a skill for skill level, he's just outclassed here. So I'm taking Piotr Jan. I'm surprised he's only a -400 favorite. As I'm looking at ESPN right now, I would have assumed he'd been bigger. he would have been a bigger favorite, which maybe would have drawn me towards, sprinkling a little bit on Marcus McGee, but I just don't see where he's going to be competitive in this fight. Petr Yan, former champ, still has it, got the belt when he was young, seems to be getting better every single fight, minus when he's not getting 50 takedowns shot on him over 25 minutes. So, yeah, give me Petr Yan by decision here.
Yeah, right. I think that last point for me is just the biggest thing. Like, what obviously, the Aljo fights, the knee, and then the split decision loss. Aljo's a different fighter than Marcus McGee. Same with Merab. Those seem to be those guys that give Merab the most trouble, is the heavy takedown guys, the heavy pressure guys. But when it's standing and it's boxing, there really might not be anyone in the division that's better than Petr Yan. And I really hate to say that as a Sean O'Malley fan, but it might be true at this point. He's still in his prime. I mean, he's 32 years old. Like you said, he's looked great his last 2 fights against way higher competition in comparison to Marcus McGee's repertoire or his resume. So, yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. It's just a little too much to handle, I think, at this point. I would have loved this to be a 5-round fight. I think it has the potential to be a 5-round fight. It's that big a quality. But obviously with the Aaron Pico fight being canceled, we're not going to get a 5-rounder here. But I think the 3 rounds even favors Petr Yan style more. I think he'll be able to open it up really fast. I know early in his career, he had some trouble getting started. That we kind of seen that go away as he's grown into his 30s. So yeah, I'm going Petr Yan. Son, like you said, kind of always fights to decisions. But I think we see a Petr Yan masterclass here. And we're talking about him potentially fighting for a belt after Corey Sandhagen.
Yeah, I'm going to make that a clean sweep and also go with Petr Yan here. And it will be a striking bout. Marcus McGee is a good dynamic striker. I think Petr Yan's a better, more dynamic striker. And with that being said as well, Marcus McGee in that fight against Jonathan Martinez, 3rd round, I know J-Mark kind of does it to everyone with those nasty leg kicks, but he fucked up Marcus McGee's legs, and he was just trying to run around the octagon and just survive that last 5 minutes. And again, not to play like MMA math here or anything, but if you put J-Mart in the ring with Petr Yan, I don't see something like that happening. And I know it's hard for that to be your argument of why he wins, but at the end of the day, I do think Petr Yan is the better striker, and it is a massive step up in competition here for Marcus McGee. But like you touched on, Ryan, Marcus McGee being 35, I'm happy they're making this fight for him. Might as well give the old dog a shot at the shot to run up to the title before his career's up.
No, I mean, absolutely. It's like you have a guy who, like, he throws, like Marcus McGee, to his credit, throws it all, spinning wheel kicks, he has like the full bag. But I think when you look at like the UFC, and this is like my controversial take in terms of Petr Yan, I guess, is like I personally think Petr Yan has the deepest bag in MMA in terms of just like when it comes to grappling, wrestling, striking. Petr Yan like does it all. I don't know if I can name another fighter who's so well versed in every single aspect of mixed martial arts in terms of just being able to do it all. For me, it comes down to Petr Yan.
Like, probably him and like Corey would be the other one that would come to mind. Probably those two.
Yeah, but even then, like, he's got the grappling advantage by far, I'd say.
And Petr, I don't know, man.
And he freestyled on Corey Sandhagen when they fought for that interim belt. Like
Corey was hurt in the first round. Whatever. Go on. I don't need to argue this.
No, I think you're thinking Corey tore his tricep when he fought Umar Nurmagomedov.
No,
Corey was winning that fight until he got caught with that elbow.
Oh, he got dropped. Yeah.
Yeah, in the 2nd or 3rd, and then you're right. Petr freestyled on him the rest of that 5-round fight. But I agree. I mean, definitely in the division. I mean, you got to throw Umar in there for most well-rounded. But Petr Yan's striking, I think, is so far ahead of those 2 guys that it almost negates, even if he is a little bit worse in the grappling department. I do think Corey's developed a great wrestling, since really when he fought Umar. But I still think Peter's, defense, his takedown defense, other than against Merab, has been fantastic his whole career. So definitely one of the most well-rounded guys on the roster.
Yeah, definitely. And just to move on to the main event here, we have a fun one between Robert Whittaker, who's looking to rebound after that submission loss to Khamzat Chimaev, versus RDR, who's looking to build off that big upset win over Bo Nickel, where he kind of just went out there and dominated Bo Nickel, found the round 2 finish after winning round 1. And it's a funny matchup. It's a thing of trajectories a little bit here. You have the streaky RDR, who everyone's comparing to DDP. opposing Robert Whittaker here. He's looking at rebounds. Very fun fight. I actually love this matchup, to be honest with you. And with all that being said, Ryan, the floor is yours to talk about this one first.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I think I'm gonna go Reinier de Ridder here. A couple of reasons. The grappling, obviously, the Reinier de Ridder striking isn't anything to write home about. RDP Whittaker has him in my regards to that respect, but when he fought Hamzat, and obviously no one knew this at the time until after the fight was done, but he was saying rear naked chokes, my jaw, my teeth getting pushed back to something I've dealt with my whole career. Once that's been exposed, I think you game plan around that, and I think Reinier de Ridder is going to game plan around that to where it's okay, if I can just lock up either a bulldog choke or a rear naked choke, and you don't even have to focus on the neck when it comes to this guy, you could just squeeze the shit out of his chin, and that 4 of his teeth, his 4 front teeth are going to pop back into his jaw. And with the grappling of Reinier de Ridder, I think there is going to be at least 1 or 2 moments in a 5-round fight where he's going to be able to sync that up, unless Robert Whittaker pulls off the greatest display of takedown defense, steeping off the back, what have you. I think Reinier de Ridder is going to be able to get this one done by submission.
Yeah, a lot of good points, right? This is a tough one for me. I think the odds are very close. I was on Bo Nickel with RDR's last fight. Obviously, we saw the levels to MMA in that fight. My biggest thing is just the pure physicality of RDR. Obviously, he's a well-decorated champion and won, but just the pure physicality, even with Kevin Holland too, it's just he seems to be taking punishment and giving punishment, especially in the clinches. And then obviously when it gets to the ground, he's one of the best in the sport. I don't know if Whittaker at this point in his career can go at that level of physicality for 5 rounds. Obviously, Robert Whittaker, former champion, has been in there with the best of the best, and this is definitely a step up in competition in the UFC for RDR. But I just envision if RDR could get close, get in the clinch, use the cage to his advantage, he's going to be able to land some knees in the clinch. He's going to hit elbows in the clinch. He looks so good against Bo Nickel in the clinch. And then once it gets to the ground, obviously RDR is the better of the two here. With that being said, if it's a standing battle, I mean, there's not many guys who could stand and strike for 5 rounds with Robert Whittaker. He still is a former champion. He still has some great wins on his resume, especially recently. Obviously, a couple losses mixed in there, but he's been in there twice with Izzy. He's fought in the top of the guys. Just came off a loss to Khamzat. These are not Bo Nickel. These are the best guys in the world. But with that being said, yeah, I'm right now it's going to be hard. I definitely will revisit this one probably Friday. But right now I'm going RDR. I think the physicality is just going to be too much. And like you said, Ryan, I do see him finding his way to the back here, and causing problems if not getting a submission dub here. So yeah, early pick for me. Obviously a week out still. I'm going to RDR. I think his run keeps on going.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you guys said. I think it's very tough to take away, what RDR has been doing and kind of, how brutal the last loss was for Whittaker. And I definitely agree with Zach. I mean, your call out for the matchmaking, I think it's great. I think this fight is very tough to go the distance here. I think, if it's standing, Robert Whittaker gets a KO, and I think if it goes to the ground, there's a very good chance that RDR can get that submission. But with all that said, I think I am going to go to the other side here. I'm going with Robert Whittaker. Originally, before you guys gave your spiel, I was going to go RDR, kind of differentiate a little bit, defend my my picks record a little bit. But I'm gonna go with Whittaker, because I fully see the danger in the submission, right? Obviously, it's been less than a year since Robert Whittaker's jaw got, mended back together. It's been a problem for a lot of his career. He said, so, it's obviously a very vulnerable area. But for RDR to get in the position to, crank that dude's neck again, he's got to put on a really good striking performance, which I think there's a very, very big gap and a big deficit in RDR's game is with the striking. Obviously, we saw a really good striking against Bo Nickel, but Bo Nickel presses the same button on the controller, right? He's just throwing that overhand over and over and over, and that's not going to change. And he obviously knew that was coming. And Robert Whittaker is a really, really tough guy to strike against. Only the best of the best have really beat him on the feet. And I think that edge is going to be enough to where he'll be able to capitalize on it. And I can really see a Robert Whittaker win coming here. I really wanted to pick RDR here. It was my initial thought coming in this podcast. But if something's telling me to go Whittaker here, I really think he can get it done. And I think that this knockout's coming this weekend for him.
One thing I want to say before I really get into it is I know a lot of people are like, oh, RDR striking is, it's so mad. But, dude, everyone says the same thing about DDP, and guess what? It works. And another thing to mention is RDR is fucking massive, man. Like, he's 6'4". He's long as fuck. He's big. He throws those knees up the middle. He attacks the body well. Like, while it doesn't look pretty, it's been effective. And the last thing I want to say, and I'm really happy you brought it up, Luke, it's the physicality of Reinier de Ridder, man. He fucking wears on people. Like I said, he's big, he's strong, and Robert Whittaker has really struggled with physicality late in his career. We saw it with Khamzat Chimaev, and we saw it with Dricus du Plessis. Both of them were very physical with Robert Whittaker, and he wilted. And now he's just older, a little bit more worn. And I don't know, man. I think the time is here for RDR, not necessarily to say to be fighting for the title, but very soon he could be. He's really a win or two away, and I do think he picks up the win over Robert Whittaker just due to what I just mentioned. So I'm going to go with RDR, but again, that is subject to change. I still need to kind of lock down, watch a little bit more film on it before I were to place any bets, but early pick, I am going with RDR.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch on, though, I know obviously we touch on the two grappling heavy guys in Khamzat and DDP, but something that Robert Whittaker has done great his whole career is scramble. And I feel like we haven't seen that, especially in the UFC, like a really good scrambler against RDR. So that is something when I was picking this fight that I was like, oh, wow, well, like the scrambling ability of Robert Whittaker could cause problems and get back to the feet and, maybe later in the fight catch a knockout. So that's definitely very live too. And I will say again, like Robert Whittaker is one of my favorite fighters. He's a hard guy not to like. Seems like a stand-up guy. Obviously, I don't know him personally. But either one of these guys losing on this fight on Saturday, it's not going to sit well.
Yeah, I agree there. I think that should be a super entertaining fight. I could see Whittaker getting him out of there with a knockout, but if Whittaker doesn't find that knockout, I just don't know if I see him winning a 5-round fight, even with Reinier de Ridder right now. But that's all I got on my end. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add. But
yeah, I was going to say, off topic a little bit, but I guess that UFC White House card was confirmed by Dana White at the post-fight press conference last Saturday. So that will be happening. I was wrong. I guess we all were. None of us thought that there was a chance none of that's happening. And the only reason I know it's happening is because Dana said John Jones will not be on it because he's too much of a liability. So it's about time some karma came back to that man. And with that being said,
I think that's also like the perfect response and extremely appropriate for that, right? How many big moments has John Jones faltered in? Even if he does go in and fight Tom Aspinall and beat him on the White House lawn, how detrimental would it be to, the entire setting and everything of the fight if he came out and was on PEDs or came out and, was on drugs before the fight and stuff like that. It's just not something that you can respect as, they're taking a fight on the United States White House lawn. It has to be a pretty perfect card. These guys are going to be showing up in suits and stuff to get in that cage. So definitely can't have a guy like John Jones kind of, tarnish the beautiful card that it could be on that front lawn.
And given all recent events, unfortunately, we probably cannot have McGregor on that one either. But I'm sure they'll put on a
definitely not. Pretty sure he's he's getting pretty close to being an international terrorist at this point. So we'll see.
Well, with that being said, thank you all for tuning in, and best of luck this weekend to all of our gamblers out there. Hopefully we can fucking win some money and not suck more. But all right, thank you all.
Dude,